we want to, thanks, Sarah. And then if you want to throw the agenda up, perfect. Okay, so we have a few things to talk about. It's been pretty busy with the budget and in finance, so I just wanted to give everybody kind of updates on stuff we've been talking about. As always, we'll start off with the financial statements that were issued for October. No new news, I guess. We're still doing really well revenue wise. As you've seen in the budget adjustment, we're going to be adjusting quite a bit of the revenues, cleaning up our expenses. You might have noticed in the financials that we do have a couple funds in the negative right now. There are 3 debt funds, 407, 408, and 409. That's normal. We pay our debt in September, and then by the end of the year, those will catch back up with the transfers going into those funds. So that's totally normal. The one that still needs attention is the shared utility fund, and that will be fixed by the end of the year as well if we get our budget amendment approved. So all is good on the financial front. I'm excited to get that budget amendment done so that we can get our updated numbers in there and see where our new targets are at, because it's going to change everything in there quite a bit when the monthly summary comes out. So any questions on the financials?
Nope.
All right. Nick, Sarah, can you scroll down to Nick's first little, there we go. All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of information here. I don't know if everybody's had the opportunity to read the agenda item in the upcoming council packet, but the basic framework is the analysis that we did over the past couple of months. One of the things that's very important, I tell all engineers as they're going into the PE test, that units are very, very important. And so what you can see here is that there's some new red text that was not in the chart that was included in the last council packet. This red text is very, very important because basically what you're seeing in columns 1 and 2 is that we're looking at monthly billing rates, and then columns 4 and 5 are bi-monthly billing units. And so basically what we had done when we conducted the evaluation of the estimated annual need and the estimated annual adjustment, basically we had looked at annual revenues utilizing the bi-monthly billing rate, i.e. multiplying the bi-monthly billing rate times 12 instead of billing it or multiplying it by 6. So if you scroll down a little bit there, Sarah, to the notes underneath that table, you can see there's a couple of other things that had been added in. Basically the new billing rate needed to be modified. Well, was not being calculated correctly. And so as I was putting the ordinance together, basically what I was kind of scratching my head about was we know the Stormwater Fund has an annual revenue of roughly $1.1 million. And what we were previously saying was that here with this 25% adjustment, we were going to generate a 50% revenue increase. And so those things just didn't add up. And so we went back and looked at it a little bit harder, and that's where we found this problem. So again, at the end of the day, I wish I could say that, I don't make mistakes and that I've never made mistakes and that I won't make mistakes, but, we did in this case. And so what we wanted to do is kind of identify the 2 different pieces. So you have 2 things that are highlighted here, the $250,000 adjustment, which is the 0.09 bi-monthly billing unit increase, and then the targeted dollar amount, which is that $526,000, which actually translates to a bi-monthly billing unit increase of 18 cents per per billing cycle. So this does translate to a different bi-monthly rate as well. And so, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind going to the next page, the new monthly rate chart. Again, I highlight the two key targets, which is the 0.09 billing unit increase and then the 0.18 billing unit increase. And so when we look at our average 9,000 square foot lot, we had previously said a monthly rate of roughly $5.06. And now basically what I'm saying is $6.08 for a monthly average. It is, obviously significantly higher than what we had previously outlined, but I think it's important to kind of keep things in context. And so, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind going to the next page. When I say keep things in context, part of what I think is important is number one, cost of service on an average utility customer, and how does that compare when you look at the cost in other jurisdictions, as well as the scope and expectations of that utility service. And so when you look across the board and we did modify this slightly, based on feedback from the Public Works Committee, we had actually taken out Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater and really focused on harbor jurisdictions. We have Montesano, Aberdeen, Hoquiam, and McCleary. These are all 2021 rates, and what we're showing is 2022 rates. And so when you look at the excuse me, the column on the left is the current monthly stormwater rate for this average 9,000 square foot parcel. And then the median or middle green column is the 0.09 adjusted rate for 2022. And then the right green column is the 0.18 rate adjustment that is actually the recommendation. So it's important to note when you look at the budget adjustment as currently presented, that is based on the revenue stream that we were previously talking about, which is now currently that 0.18 adjustment that is shown. And so again, it is a larger increase than expected, but I think it's important to note that, again, in comparison to other jurisdictions in Grace Harbor, we're talking 25% less than the lowest rate outside of Ocean Shores. And we have a massive system that, most other jurisdictions, they don't have the same scope that we have as it relates to our stormwater responsibilities. So a little bit of a curveball, for lack of better words, but the intent obviously is, if we want to provide the services that, it sounds like people want, we need to make the financial adjustments so that we can provide those services that people desire. So that's kind of where we're at on our stormwater rates. And I expect I'll probably go through the same, introduction at council, but I'm happy to dive into any questions, concerns, comments, thoughts that council might have at this point in time. And obviously, Angie, is there anything that you think is important that I may have missed?
No, I was just going to kind of speak to where we would be. I guess the reason we kind of left both rates in there is because we already presented the $5.06 rate increase. If council elected to do that, we could still leave the extra budgeted stuff in there, the position and the mechanical weed harvesting, but our fund balance would be about 69,000 instead of the council target of like 250 some thousand. So we left both in there because we already presented the one. We're going with the recommended rate increase of the 608 in the ordinance that we're bringing forward, just because that gets us to the council's approved financial policy target for the ending fund balance. But again, we already presented the one, so we didn't want to take that one out necessarily. So it's a lot of information to digest, but based on what we've heard though, it's people support the need for it. I was quite surprised at the Public Works Committee meeting to hear specifically one council member was really in favor of increasing these rates to get some of the fresh waterways stuff taken care of. So it'll be up to council to decide though what rate to go with in the end.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that there was a little bit of a miss there, since that's kind of what I've been promoting out there. I do agree, it's still a pretty low rate, but obviously down the road in a couple of years, we're going to probably be revisiting it again. So yeah, it's still low, and $2, $1, but yeah, a little unfortunate that we didn't have that up front. Would have helped me a little bit.
So I have a couple questions. Can you hear me? This is
Yep.
Catherine. One of the things that I started the rate increase does an additional 500,000, right? It's not the total of what we collect, correct?
Yeah, extra 526.
Correct.
Angie?
Yeah, that's correct. So the one that we discussed previously, the $1.01 per month actually equates to about $263,000 extra each year. But then the new recommended rate of the $2.03 gets us to that $526,000 extra per year. So it's in addition to what we already collect on both fronts.
So then to clarify, that's a 50% increase in the fund, correct? We're going from 1.1 million to 1.6 million approximately.
Yeah, and I will say the vast majority of the increase is actually on the city bills. I did those calculations, and our yearly bill is going up about $197,000 a year. So just for perspective, out of the 526,000, almost 200,000 of it is actually going to be attributed to the city. So if that, I did have to incorporate that new rate into the budget amendment too, because that was a big number.
Right. So it's a mechanism for the general funds sort of to feed part of the stormwater utility fund.
Yep, we have
Correct?
to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to pay our own
Yeah.
utilities. We don't get any
No breaks.
opt out on that.
Yeah, no breaks. And so it parlays to about a 30 to 40% increase in the water, in the increase from $405 a month to $608 a month for the average lot.
I guess I'm not understanding the water question.
Well, I'm talking, I moved to the actual monthly charge for a 9,000 square foot lot.
Oh, yeah,
Is basically a 50%, almost 50% increase.
correct.
Yeah, that's going to be a little hard for people to swallow.
So yeah, the $1 is actually going to be a 25% increase per
Right.
month, but the 203 will be 50.
Right. I think that's, some people are going to have a problem swallowing that. And the last thing I want to say, unless John or Eric have other comments,
Go ahead.
you may remember last year when we had this conversation about rates. I was and still remain opposed to a automatic increase in the utility rates based on the consumer price index. We are not selling a pound of hamburger. This isn't a loaf of bread. there are other price indices that we can consider. And I'm specifically thinking about the utility price index, which I think would be more appropriate for this. It could still be, you know, capped at 3% or whatever. But I just don't think using the Seattle urban CPI is an appropriate measure for adjusting anything. I understand that some cities use it. However, that doesn't make it correct. And I think we should be looking at the utility price index, not the consumer price index. Based on that, the consumer price index is a market basket of goods that you buy at the store. And it's just, well, this month it's at 6% increase. It's, I just think it's not the appropriate index. I think we should be looking at the utility price index.
I see that Angie's hand is raised, and I think I know exactly what she's going to say is the reason we use that. But go ahead, Angie.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was going to say is the reason we use that specific CPI measurement is because it's based on what we use in our collective bargaining agreements. So we're trying to, with the CPI rate adjustments in the utilities, we're trying to keep up with our salary increases because payroll is the vast majority of our budget in these funds. So that's kind of what we're using that for, is to make sure we're keeping up with our salary increases each year. So I hope that kind of makes sense as to, we didn't just pull it out of the air for sure. There is some logic behind using that one so that it's all consistent amongst all of our CBAs and our rates. John?
So, and I agree, I would be not in favor of going with the utility CPI, because if you use utility, it is really going to be focused on utility cost, and you could dramatically jump a lot higher if you just looked at the cost of gas in a very short period. There's to me, the CPI levels it more out than what we have, and of course all of our labor agreements are tied to that. So, and plus it's easier, I think, for the consumer to understand it. But my question is, and I'm not sure if I'm in favor of the jump. What I don't know, could you go back to the previous slide? So that the 0.09, and I was on the Public Works, and yes, that we were in favor, but we had the wrong data that we were talking about. You know, so I don't think the Public Works has actually seen the new numbers. But my couple questions I have is, number one, that second number, that's that 50% increase, that gets us everything that the council has talked about in fresh waterways.
You're talking the second highlighted number, the one down at the
The
bottom.
second highlight.
That gets everything that we had been talking about, correct?
Okay, and then if we didn't do everything that we had in there, because I know that some council question, should we spend all the money on the things that were presented? And so I have no idea if the council is going to be in favor of that. But if they reduced it, does the lower number, does that just get us the basic without any extra services?
Well, I think Angie had just identified that it still provides, you know, the staff member and the mechanical harvesting, and leaves us with a $70,000 ending fund balance. And so it's under that target, and how council chooses to kind of, you know, ebb and flow those three items, you know, really it's going to be, you know, kind of the council discussion. You know, if the FTE comes out and you add that $150,000 to the ending fund balance of, you know, 70,000, it's probably going to put you in the target dollar range. But you're not going to be, you know, getting any additional services for that. So That's kind of the challenge that I think, we're faced with. Does that sound about right, Angie?
Yeah, and I think from what I'm hearing out in the meetings that we've had, it sounds like people are supporting the need for the extra services. I think, in my opinion, it's just going to come down to where you want your ending fund balance to be. So with the $1, it'll be about 70,000. With the 203, it'll be about 281. So I think that is going to be the ultimate question for council. I don't think there's any disagreement that we need the services. It's just a matter of how tight do you want to run that fund balance? Do you want it to be below your financial policy target? Because in the end, we're going to be doing this again, most likely next year, if we run that fund balance that low. So it's just, that's where we're kind of headed. It would be okay. It would just be tight to do the $1 and leave everything in there.
If I can jump in here, there's one other thing that, we talked about at the Public Works Committee meeting, and I expect that probably will come up at the council meeting on Monday, is, obviously there's been quite a bit of discussion about adding additional staff to the operational team to execute, work out on the waterway. And so one of the pieces associated with this is that, and I haven't looked at all different scenarios, but when I think about that $6.08, that's currently highlighted, by doing that adjustment, bringing the current FTE on board, one of the things that we had talked about is by leaving this rate as it is, it gives us the opportunity to add additional team members for the operational team beginning in 2023. Right now, a chunk of money is being allocated to get the ending fund balance back up to where that needs to be. So that's not an annualized cost that's going to be embedded in there. And so once we've checked that box and moved past that goal, that money is now available to fund staff members to actually do the physical work that we have talked about as well. So there's a variety of different ways to kind of play this out, and that's actually how I had envisioned playing it out after our conversation last week. So just wanted to give you a little insight as to kind of what I was been thinking about on that.
Yeah, and just from my perspective, the $1.80 as opposed to the 90 cent, $2 as opposed to the $1. It is a 50% increase, when if you look at the percentage, that seems like a lot of money, but when it's a $2 a month issue, the dollar figure is not that much. And I, having been talking about this for the last 6+ months, I would, my perspective is from the community, the $2 is not really an issue. We were actually talking about much bigger numbers if you're looking at, trying to fund what the fresh waterways is going to need down the road. I think, again, we need to take care of the fresh waterways, and this is the first step to do that, and shows the community that we are committed to taking care of the fresh waterways and being fiscally responsible in how we're doing that. So again, I agree, 50% seems like a big jump. $2, we're still the lowest in the county. And as Nick said, when you put in the fresh waterways and what we have to take care of, therein lies the problem that we have, is we haven't been taking care of it. And that's why we have the lowest rates, because we haven't been taking care of our system. So this is just the beginning to start doing that. So I would support, I don't like that it's, twice what we were expecting, but the dollar value is not that big a deal. And I know some people won't like it, but I would assume from my perspective, the vast majority of the community are going to go, please, let's start doing this.
I think Eric just summed that up absolutely perfectly. I mean, at the end, I know it sounds like it, but it's $24.36 a year. And we have the lowest rates precisely because we haven't, addressed some of these issues. But we also have bigger issues to address than most of the cities in the harbor because of the nature of our fresh waterways. So, yeah, I know the number, if you put it in percentage terms, that sounds bad, but if you put it in actual dollar terms, you'll see it's not much.
And you could use, okay, so at the council meeting, you and Nick are going to present this. And what happens to the rest of the budget if council does not pass, if we cannot make a decision? What does it do for you as far as moving forward on the budget?
Well, that segues into our next topic. If you guys are ready to move on to the budget amendment, I was going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions on storm rates? Nope. Okay. So right out of the gate, the agenda bill does say that I recommend approving this on the second reading, and that's just strictly because I was going with our budget calendar. I'm going to recommend that we not do that and we take this to a third reading because we do have some work to do on the storm rates still. So that's only our first reading, not expecting the storm to get approved by any means at our upcoming meeting. So I think we should just approve them both in conjunction, which will hopefully be the first meeting in December. So does that answer that question, John?
It does. I'm just trying to think if so we still have, I guess would be in December. So, but you would like to have at least a general feeling of, is the council in support of whatever rate is going to be at the next meeting?
Yes. So I'm going to go to the general fund right now. That one's looking good. We did remove that water pipe transfer out of there, and I updated some revenues to get them through current. So we're meeting the council's $2.5 million target in that fund. So that one's okay. And Sarah, if you want to scroll down to the bottom, I highlighted the storm drain. So that number, if you go down a little bit more, there's some notes. Yeah, perfect. So that number, the 281, includes the position, the mechanical harvesting, and also includes the $2.03 increase per month, which will correspond with the ordinance that Nick is presenting on the storm rates. So what I need from council is if we're going to stick with the 203 and bring that number back to the second reading of the storm rate ordinance, or if we want to go back to the $1, because if we do go back to the $1, I will need to update this number for the third reading of the budget ordinance. So you're right. Nick and I both need a number for the storm to be able to finish both his ordinance and my budget stuff at that December meeting.
And then, okay, so Nick, then I'm a little bit confused just because, and again, I was on the public works and you brought the option for 2 additional ads. Where would that go? I mean, for just moving blogs and items. Is that not in this budget? And that would be into the next budget that we're talking, or was that going to be part of this?
With the current rate structure, it is not included in this year's adjustment. So those positions could be incorporated in 2023 and beyond. If they were desired to be incorporated in 2022, the adjustment would have to be higher. And I guess that is kind of consistent with what we had talked about in the Public Works Committee, is that the adjustment would have to be higher to incorporate staff members today. The tough part is that with what I had prepared, I don't have the information to show what the rate adjustment would need to be to incorporate that in for 2022. But long story short, the framework with what we're talking about adopting gives us the flexibility to incorporate those staff members in 2022.
Okay, because I do believe that there are at least 2 council members that are going to bring that up.
Right.
And I know too that we discussed in that committee meeting that the plan would be to get the new person in there, get an actual plan done, kind of figure out what the needs are, because once we start adding positions, we can't take those back. So just to add a bunch of people at once with no real plan or, future rate structure in place, I think is a little bit premature. Plus we can't like onboard 3 brand new people at once either, because none of them are going to know what they're doing. So, I mean, I think this is a great fix for now. And then as we go into the 2023, 2024 budget, we'll have a better understanding of what we need, how many people we need, what rates we need. So yeah, that would be my opinion on that.
Okay.
Can I ask an off-base question?
Yeah.
Do either of these, the rate increase ordinance or the budget amendment require a supermajority?
The budget amendment ordinance will require a supermajority.
Thank you.
Is there any heartburn about moving the budget amendment to a 3rd reading?
Not for me.
Okay, I didn't think there would be, but
No, I think that that's kind of our new council policy, that when it comes to any rate increases, that we would never pass it on the 1st reading, it would always be the 2nd one. So I think every council member is in favor of that.
yeah, it doesn't make sense to pass the budget amendment before a rate adjustment. That just doesn't make logical sense. So we'll plan on bringing everything back to December, but we do need a final number for the storm for us to be able to finish what we need to do on our end to get that done.
So let me clarify.
Okay.
Because I got a little bit confused there at the end when you were talking about extra positions and council members wanting extra people besides. With a rate of 6.08, you could hire an environmental specialist. You could do the mechanical harvesting and bring up the ending balance to 10%.
Correct.
With a structure of 506, you could still hire the environmental specialist and you could still do the mechanical harvesting, but the rate, the ending balance would not be at that target. However, we could, full stop there. But with the new budget coming up, starting in July or so, conversations, that could be we can look at it again to see how much we're actually bringing in with that rate increase. And in addition, look at possibly hiring 2 people then? Is that what you said?
So I think if we do the $1 I think we are going to be having another rate discussion next year. It doesn't allow for any flexibility to hire any additional like crew people. The $6.08 per month does allow for that. So going into the next budget cycle, we're either going to be talking about adding positions with no rate increase, which would be at the $6.08 rate, or we're going to be talking about adding positions and doing another rate increase because we don't have the funds available to add any positions. So it's a matter of possibly doing another rate increase next year in conjunction with the budget. Nick?
Yeah, I wanted to point out that, as it relates to evaluating revenue streams in July to see how much we're bringing in, you got to remember with the stormwater fund, the square footage in Ocean Shores isn't going to change. We were off by 5% because of the rounding that we had to do associated with the billing unit. And so, the revenue that we're going to bring in is going to be very, very consistent with the target because the square footage isn't changing. You're not adding new utility customers like we are with the other utilities. So the revenue stream should be very, very stable as it relates to the stormwater utility.
Yeah, and I think the ultimate question is just very high level. We do one rate increase right now and take care of it for the next few years, or we do a Band-Aid and then have to do this again next year.
Yep.
That's the
Except-
high.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Except that if this ordinance passed as written, and I will tell you, I do not support it with the CPI in there, in 2023, you would begin increasing the rate anyway, regardless of any conversation that council members wanted to weigh in on. So you're going to see at least or up to 3%, possibly 0, but with what's going on right now, with the consumer price index, inflation being at 6%, you're looking at a 3% increase. Is that not correct?
That is correct, but you also have to understand that our salaries are going up 3.5%. So that CPI is just built in to cover our ongoing costs of payroll, basically. So that's the reason for the CPI. It's not because, the utility cost itself is going up. It's because the salaries are going up every year because we're bound by our collective bargaining agreements to give people raises. So if we say no CPI, that's where we get into the position where we've been with the other utilities, where every few years we have to reevaluate because the salaries have gone up, but our rates have stayed the same. Nick?
So, okay.
Yeah, I had a great conversation with somebody yesterday that I, as it relates to the stormwater rates, that I think is probably pertinent to share with the finance committee. We have 4 utilities. We have the stormwater utility, we have the water utility, we have the sewer utility, and we have the EMS utility. And so when you look at the service area of those utilities, we all have the same service area effectively. The level of service that you're going to see in each one of those utilities is obviously going to vary because the purpose of that line of business is going to be very different. But one thing that that really jumped out at me, and you can actually see it on what's shown on the screen right now, is the annualized expenditures to operate that utility, to operate that line of business. And so you've got to get that piece into your head that it is a line of business with a specific intent. And so to operate the storm utility, we're talking 2.1 million as it was currently written. We're talking about 2.6 million for 2 years for us to operate that utility. When you look at sewer, you're at $5 million to operate that utility for 2 years. When you look at water, you're at $7 million to operate that utility for 2 years. And you look at EMS, you're at $7 million to operate that utility for 2 years. The cost of service to operate this line of business is significantly less than our other lines of businesses. And that's because we're not investing to where we should be. And, however, you guys are the board of our lines of businesses, and however you choose to give us the flexibility to function in those lines of business is your choice. But I really thought it was eye-opening for me to look at those other utilities and see the expenditures associated with those. And then you look at the stormwater utility and you see a very big difference. And so what we're capable of providing is going to be very different than what we're capable of providing in those other lines of business. I just thought it was important to share. I apologize for going off track there.
All right, have we beat this topic to death yet?
Yep.
Okay, are we good? All right. So LTAC, you're probably wondering why this is in a finance committee topic meeting, but the reason being because as we talk about the LTAC resolution, I do have a plea for the council to not adjust any of the dates in there. Those dates all coincide with our budget process. So as we're going through this resolution, if we could just leave the date stuff alone, that would be amazing. But I do have some thoughts. And basically Diane, Sarah, and I were asked to bring up our opinions on what doesn't work in this current resolution. So going down to number 2, down at the bottom of this page, I think is our first big task, is dealing with this LTAC membership section. There's been a bunch of thoughts about the committee, specifically term limits. There are no requirements on term limits. It's up to our own resolution. So council can do whatever they want with this. We do have to have a committee of 5, and we do have to have a committee because our population's over 5,000. So some ideas are no term limits, or if we do have term limits, maybe staggering them so we don't have a brand new committee every so many years all at once. I would ask that there be some dates in there. That it seems like every year we're in a scramble to get these people their applications in and get them appointed before the October meeting. So it'd be really nice if we had some dates in there to get our committee set up earlier in the year instead of waiting till September to do it.
Yep.
Eric, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I would hugely agree with that. Earlier is better. I would be in favor of no term limits, but every year accepting applications for new LTAC people, and then the mayor or whoever could transition them out, because people aren't going to want to serve on that ad infinitum anyway. So, you know, that term limit thing really finds us pretty hard. That makes things difficult and gets us in trouble. So, but earlier would be much better. It's real hard in September to all of a sudden, okay, now put the committee together, try to meet, try to get everything together. It always feels really, really rushed, and I didn't like it.
Exactly. I agree 100% on that. So any other, those were my thoughts. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
Not too much. There's just a lot of key RCWs that can be put in it. And I think that that's what our resolution is missing, so that it's completely, I mean, RCWs are left to a certain amount of interpretation, but we're constantly having to go and find that, where if it was blanketed in our resolution, it's more clear and concise for anybody that is applying, anybody that's looking to be on the board, exactly where the council knows it sits. So it's just a matter of matching this up to already state required mandates that have to do with this LTAC membership. And then some key points that, not the random questions, but like, this is who can apply, that, you know, a policy, if you will, that goes with it, so that it's clear and concise for the consumer that's going to apply for it also. So that it would be my plea, aside from the term or following the RCWs, is that we just clean up the constant questions and dare I say, innuendos of transparency that we kind of get attacked with annually, and then we go and find the RCW or what have you. So just for those to be in a nice, clean, concise document would be beneficial for the overall process.
I would say that following on, you know, good segue about transparency is possibly we might want to consider this particular committee being a council appointed or council involved in the selection beyond just doing a thumbs up for who is selected. So maybe council, an ad hoc committee would review applications, would, you know, put out the word, and if there didn't appear to be enough applications on either the payer of or the receiver of funds, then have a way of reaching out to try to attract more applicants. So, you know, the elephant in the room is we all got, you know, whether rightly or wrongly, got attacked for accepting appointments beyond the scope of that resolution. And I think that maybe an ad hoc, at least consider an ad hoc council committee to consider this particular committee membership, because it is pretty high profile, it's spending a lot of money.
I believe that would also, I have to go double check, but something like that would result in a change of our municipal code, because I believe it's written in our municipal code that the mayor appoints based on applications received. So I think that would, with all due respect, Catherine, be a different conversation versus the resolution that outlines the process.
Well, it does say in the membership designee.
Correct,
Mayor
because
or
that matches
designee.
our municipal code, that the mayor or designee, which would be Scott Anderson as the designee, would be the person to appoint, which then would change our municipal code, which is not done by resolution.
I understand that perfectly. It's not, it could be done if the will of if the council said, I mean, we are the legislators. If the council said it's a better way of doing it. I'm just throwing
Oh,
that
yeah,
out.
it can be done. I just, resolution discussion versus changing municipal code, it would just all have to happen. It would be two different things. Either you wouldn't put that information in here at all that the mayor would appoint, or you would change the municipal code prior to.
Or simultaneously, right?
Or,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, and I know in years past, when it was the, mayor and the LTAC chair went through the applications and chose it. For it this year, obviously it was, I think because the election and the people that were doing it, it became a huge issue. But years past, I remember even going quite a ways back, as far as the selection of the LTAC committee never seemed to be a big deal. And then when they met, that was always very transparent, very open meeting, so I'm not sure, that I think it was an anomaly this year that it was so contentious, but I have a feeling it was due to the election and some other things going on, but I've never seen it like it was this year. In past years, it always has been fairly transparent, and you don't get a ton of applications because the applicants are kind of limited who can apply anyway. So you're going through the people.
Yeah, and in the end, the council does have to give the final approval. So at that point, if there was an issue, because even in this policy, it says council has to concur. So that would
Right.
be the point where if there was an issue, that could be handled that way.
Yeah.
Going on to number 4, down on the next page, I have some thoughts on that one as well. I was thinking this might be a good place to add some info about being able to open it up for unexpected or emergency needs outside of the normal process. I know we get asked that all the time. And we do have a resolution 775 that was written before this current one that had that emergency language in there. So I would put that maybe on council's radar as well, because that need does come up every once in a while. And if council does want to be able to open it up throughout the year, that would be a good thing to add to a new resolution.
And on that one, Angie, I agree, because if you remember, you and I worked on it and put it in there, and for whatever reason, the mayor didn't want it and it got pulled out of there. But I think it gives as long as there's the structure of how that it is, and we make sure that we have the money for it, I think that's always good, because we could have more money, I don't know, in a year that, and a good use of that fund could come up. So I would be in favor of that.
Yeah. Number 5, I think we could, going back to what Sarah was saying about strengthening kind of what we do in certain events, MRSC has some great language that clarifies we always get the question of, does council have to accept the LTAC recommendations? Can they change them? Can they add? Can they delete? And MRSC has some very clean, precise language that I would like to see added in there that basically says exactly what you can do and how to handle that. So we can get that to council as well for consideration. And then my last comment was on number 9, down under A4. Just get down there. We always get, and Sarah can speak to this one better than I can because she's done all the research on it, but we always get the question of, can for-profits apply for LTAC funds? And I think it would be great to put a little note somewhere in here, maybe in this section, that says it does apply to for-profits and that's totally legal, because that's something that Sarah did the research for this time around, because it always gets brought up with like, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but you guys know
June.
June, yes. Every year we get asked, can she even apply for that because she's a for-profit? And the answer is yes, but it would just be nice to have that spelled out in here so that we don't have to go through that every year of answering those questions. Anything else on, that's kind of, and we'll get, I know we have a discussion on the agenda for Monday's meeting, and if it's okay, John, I'd like to, I think you're leading that, if we could get you some bullet points about our ideas on this.
Yeah, that would be good. And one of the other things that, which is not kind of the same thing, but I think that we also need to review the application for LTAC and just make sure that it's relevant.
Yeah, so I believe the application and the tourism promotion agreement are part of the resolution.
Okay,
So we would have to update all of the documents to make sure they all coincide once we get something done.
thanks.
Yeah. All right. Okay, this should be quick. Ambulance utility cost of service and rate study update. So obviously there's been a lot of talk around town about staffing needs at the fire department. We had an administration meeting with the fire union where we had a conversation about needing to get our rate study updated. As you probably know, it's out of date at the end of 2021. So we are working in finance to get we're trying to figure out if we need to do an RFP or if we don't need to do an RFP, but we're working to get something to council probably in January to request that we get money added to the budget for an updated rate study on that. So that's just kind of a heads up. It's coming down the pipe in a month or so.
Is there any way that we could speed that up?
Well, if we have to do an RFP, we have certain deadlines. Yeah. So
Just
we can get it
because-
to you as soon as we can, but I doubt wholeheartedly that it'd be ready by December, the December meeting.
Okay, because I think that we do need, I think we do need a rate study and,
Yeah.
and update it. So we can sit down with everybody and start having a conversation of what it looks like and what the cost is going to be and what it includes, because I'm sure it includes the South Fire Station. And then, of course, all this is there going to be any funding that we can get from federal, to get there? So I think at least have the conversation. This is what's coming. And, there's a sense of urgency to get it, because didn't it just take us a lot longer than we thought it was going to take to get the study completed on the last one we did?
It took 6 months, but it was because one of the key members had
Right.
an illness.
Yes, exactly.
So it doesn't typically take that long. So upon council approval, we would hope to get this kicked off in the spring would be my hope, because we would need the updated numbers as we roll into the next budget cycle.
Okay, because I believe, I'm only speaking for myself, but I believe the council would be very supportive of us moving as fast as we can to start the study process.
Yeah. And I don't know if one of either John or Scott wants to mention that we're working on it at our next council meeting as one of your reports or what have you, but it might be a good thing to let people know that we are working on it. We're not ignoring the fact that we need to get this done. So
Could you get us some just brief bullet points so we can talk about what the process is to get the rate study and then the time frame so that we can put that out there, you know, this is something that we talked about at finance and I'm assuming, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm assuming Catherine and Eric, you'd be in support of moving forward on a rate study.
Very much so.
Certainly a study. I'm not sure I'm supportive of a huge utility rate hike.
Oh, no, I'm just talking study, just so we can
Yeah,
just start the
study.
process.
Study is fine to inform us. Yes.
Okay, all right.
okay. Next thing is actually some pretty exciting news. We met with Coastal Community Action Program to talk about our utility assistance program. So council did add $50,000 to the budget amendment to get that utility assistance program up and running. We did reach out to Greater Grace Harbor. Unfortunately, they don't have a program in place for residential customers. They said they would do commercial ones, but this is specific to residential. So we reached out to Coastal Community Action Program, and they said that they would be willing to take that on for us. So we are in the process of getting a contract together. And then what will happen is we have to define our, income limits, the needs, which we're trying to make it consistent with the programs that are already running for the PUD and their own internal programs so that it's all consistent. And basically they already have a rental assistance program and a utility assistance program, but they could add the money that the city is pledging and basically add that to what they have to help our customers out even more. So we're really excited about it. It's in the preliminary stages right now. We don't have anything in place as of yet, but I just wanted to let everybody know that we are working on it in hopes to getting that up and going before the end of the year, because we do start utility shutoffs in January. So it's exciting. We're the only city. So that's awesome. Sarah.
The only thing I was gonna say that had to do with that meeting that was a big takeaway for me too, and it's something that we also have on our website, is that they also expressed again, they have a huge dollar amount of money for rental assistance. And we
Yes.
have that information on our website. But if you get that word out there, because they were kind of pleading at that same time while everybody was talking about the, backlog of billings and stuff, that's something good that they have that a lot of people qualify for. And we have that information on the website, but it would be great for council and members to get that out to the public even more so.
And I was going to mention that during my city administrator report, but thanks, Sarah. Yeah, because obviously people, that could come in desperately useful for people.
And they have sent us flyers, so we could print out flyers. If people want to stop by Sarah's office and grab a stack to start handing out. We just want to get the word out. I'm still a little concerned. We have just a few people that have reached out for a payment plan. So I just don't think any of this is really taken off, and it's really gonna have an effect when we start shutoffs. So the earlier that people can get out there and apply for this, the better, because there is help, and we just need people to know where to go and how to get that. So.
Hey, and Angie, just from a PUD point of view, they were at $1.6 million behind. They're now down to 400,000.
Awesome.
And Angie, I know that usually you share the aging report, but do you know, or can you get the number of households we're talking about that are in arrears, and maybe something additional could be done besides the flyer in the utility bill and the notification on the web page.
Yeah, I think at last count, just off the top of my head, it was like 200 accounts. So it's a pretty big number. We can, once we get this up and going, we can do some more like maybe send specific people flyers on it or what have you. Unfortunately, we can't go in there and apply for them. They have to do some of this on their own. We can do
Right,
what we can, but
Yeah, I'm just thinking like, I don't know, this is just, sort of dreaming. Personal phone calls or a certified letter that says, congratulations, you're eligible for some rate relief, contact CCAP. Here's the number, reach out, and maybe even CCAP could do some of that. It just, sometimes I think that personal contact, there's a lot of people around town that don't have access. I mean, I know they get their water bills, but if they're not paying them, it's like, well, maybe they're not even opening the things because they're too despondent.
yeah. Yep, that's a good point. I think now that you say that too, we could get a stack of those to go to the library because it seems like that's a good place for people to look for stuff like that. So, but yeah,
Absolutely.
I can actually do that. I'll do that part today. I'll just go out and get those to the library.
yeah.
Great. Yeah, I know I always use my neighbor as an example. She has a flip phone that's about 15 years old. She can text and that's about it. She doesn't have a computer, but she does go to the library when she needs to do, research or if she wants to order something for her cats. So,
I like
that's
her
a great-
neighbor. I'm a cat person.
yeah, she's the one I walk with and pick up garbage with. So anyway, I use her as my example because she's not the only person in town who fits that profile.
Sure. I get
And I
that.
have public postings to do today, Angie, so if you want to shoot me over the flyer, we can put one at the post office too.
That's awesome. That'd be great. Okay. Scott, I think you're up. I'm done talking. I'm tired.
I'll bet you are. You've been on for an hour now. So thank you, Angie. Thank you, Nick. And thank you, Sarah, for your contributions. But Nick, I'm not quite done with you yet because obviously I'm not sure. I'm sure everyone knows, but they don't know. And there's two things. City's working on a whole host of things right now. One of which is some personnel changes, some large personnel changes. We have started as of 2 days ago. We have our new human resources director, and we'll be bringing her to council on Monday. Her name's Kristen Meta Jones. She's going to be fantastic for us, I think. She was.
Oh,
The fire department's internet connection.
oh, it's not me.
Nope.
It's all Scott. It's his fault.
He's burning up the wires. It's a good example of broadband needed in Ocean Shores, right? Part of that ARPA money and the new infrastructure bill. You were going for that, Eric, I remember.
Yeah, I think Elon's going to make everything much different in the next couple of years.
With the satellite?
Yeah, he just launched his second generation, which will compete with fiber optic.
Yeah, Starlink, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Looks like Scott's gone.
And he's coming back.
yay.
What are the odds of that? It went the entire meeting and then it just froze the second I started.
We had a good opportunity to discuss broadband and Starlink satellites. So
I mean, unbelievable. The entire meeting it goes, and then the fire department Wi-Fi dies right when I get on. Anyway, apologies for that. I just realized everyone's face has stopped moving and I'm like, that's not a good sign. All right, let me begin again. So I said, I'm not sure how much you caught, but big personnel changes in the city. Kristen Meta-Jones is our new HR director. We'll be bringing her to council. I think we're really, really fortunate to have her. But the other news is that Nick is leaving us for the city of Aberdeen. I don't know if you still have your formal offer letter. I think every time I say that, Nick looks more and more nervous. But I'll let Nick discuss that for a minute. And I'll also let Nick discuss an update on phase 2 of the fire break. And then I'll take it back over from Nick. So go ahead.
Gotcha. Yeah. So KXRO published some news, last week, and it's kind of a little bit of a curveball. Part of my limitation is that I have accepted the offer in principle with the city of Aberdeen verbally. We still are working on the written correspondence piece. So I have not submitted anything to the city of Ocean Shores. Timeline is still completely up in the air. My intention is, like I explained to Scott and John, at the end of last week, my intention is, to hopefully stick around and see, a few things, out through the end of the year and a little bit into January. So still, have some puzzle pieces to put together there. As it relates to the fire break, we have processed SEPA, and so we're getting that ball rolling. The expectation is that the second phase of the fire break project will be advertising here in the near future. So obviously, big check marks. We like knocking those things out and moving along. So I would expect probably not going to happen at the meeting in December, but I would expect in January, Public Works is going to be, coming forward with a recommendation of award for facilitating the fire break project, or the second phase of the fire break project.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
So
Other things? Go
Can
ahead.
I
Yeah,
just
please.
do you want me, I can wait till the end if you want.
No, go ahead.
Okay, when you bring that fire break proposal, it seems to me that it might be a great opportunity to say what a maintenance plan looks like, because there's been a lot of back and forth about, well, how do we've chopped everything down, now how do we keep it from growing back up? So that, whomever brings that would probably I think it'd be good to have, like, what are we going to do and how often are we going to do it? And the other thing I want to say is, Nick, I'm going to miss your hearty laugh and your very well coordinated tie and shirts. You always dress really nicely for presentations, and I really appreciate that as a business meeting. So thank you, and I'm sure we'll see you hanging around. That's it.
All right, thank you. Other things the city is working on, Ocean Shores, a commercial corridor enhancement plan and housing needs analysis. We've been meeting with Kevin Decker at Sea Grant. There's a grant proposal that is potentially in the works for the Economic Development Administration's American Rescue Plan that would do a corridor enhancement plan. That's the focus for the entrance of Ocean Shores. And I'll be meeting with Sarah Bisson to discuss more about that today, but we're moving forward on that. LeMay is now ready to move forward and start ordering the Bear Lock trash cans. I imagine they'll probably be available somewhere in January, but their tests have all been successful. So I think that will be a very valuable service to offer our citizens who are tired of bears flipping over their containers. With regards to Edgewood and Rain Street, certain issues, we have officially red tagged 770 Rain Street, that property, and it is being abated. And a street light has been put in thanks to the work of PUD and the quick work of PUD on Edgewood, which we are hoping will help mitigate some criminal issues that are associated with that by having better lighting. Leadership Grays Harbor is announced that they are calling for city staff to take part in that this year. And I've had some conversations already with 2 of our staffers. Angie already mentioned, obviously, the rate study, which is pressing moving forward. And that's about all for me for now.
Thanks. I think we covered everything with it. So now we'll just see what happens on Monday.
What was that address on Rain again? 77
770 Rain Street, yeah, 77 South Rain Street.
770?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. And just a reminder, our next meeting is early in December because hopefully we only have one council meeting. So it'll be on December 9th at 10 o'clock.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Thank you all.
Bye.